We dream of a destiny among the stars, but the road to the solar system starts with on-ramps in Cis-Lunar space. Why Cis-Lunar space? Well, we often imagine space as the next Wild West, pioneers pushing to strange new worlds, struggling against harsh frontiers. The truth is that real civilization shows up when logistics gets boring. More often than not, progress is not about planting flags, it's about arguing over shipping invoices. NASA has a lot more accountants than astronauts. So today we have a lot to cover, and some of that is in those less glamorous but absolutely fundamental aspects of space development, and I'll do my best to keep it interesting. If it helps, you can take a drink every time I mention fuel arbitrage, though I'd avoid anything with alcohol in it or you might not make it to the end of the episode. Fundamentally, off-Earth fuel production is the key to space development, so it will come up a lot. Assuming that hasn't scared you off, grab a drink and a snack and let's jump in. On Earth, ports, rails, and power lines turn wilderness into cities. In space, the first region we can make predictable is the Cis-Lunar corridor, everything from low Earth orbit out to the Moon and the halo of useful orbits and Lagrange points around it. It is close enough to phone home and far enough to matter. A lot of our future in space is necessarily still unclear and dependent on technological factors that are changing all the time, but there are 4 reasons to start here in Cis-Lunar that are not speculative. First and foremost, Earth is right here, which obviously is a pretty good reason to develop the space right around it first. Second, physics favors us, because the Moon sits in a much shallower gravity well than Earth, so anything we can make there, propellant, oxygen, glass, metal, even bulk radiation shielding, can be shipped up to high orbits at far lower energy costs than dragging off the ground. It provides a ready source of raw materials, but without the enormous gravity and attached cost of shipping off Earth. Though note that certain developments like relatively cheap to produce space elevators would probably negate that lunar ISRU advantage in many ways, but it also makes travel to space so easy that an immediate surge in demand for things like space hotels anyone could visit would also boost Cis-Lunar development. Third, customers already exist. Communications and Earth observation constellations, national security payloads, climate and science missions, lunar logistics for surface sorties, and, let's be honest, tourism and media. The near-term market is not exotic, it's propellant, power, data, delivery, and safe parking for satellites and vehicles we already fly. A tug that can refuel and push a geostationary satellite for another decade pays for itself. A depot that keeps lunar landers topped up and makes every surface mission cheaper. And fourth, resilience. Cis-Lunar is where we practice being an industrial species off-world. We learn to refine water into propellant, print structures from regolith, and run power in the dark. We also buy strategic insurance. A network of depots, tugs, and habitats means space stays open through launcher stand-downs, geopolitical spats, and supply shocks. If you want Earth's economy to benefit from space, make the first industrial park next door. Moreover, if you want moon bases, Martian exploration, and asteroid mines, you need orbital infrastructure and wider Cis-Lunar infrastructure able to send supply and rescue missions in fast and robust ways. The map. Key orbits and choke points. Nothing says civilization like arguing over parking spots, even though spots are on the Moon. A good economy starts with a good map. Cis-Lunar space looks chaotic until you spot the lanes and warehouses. Let's begin with close orbits. Definitions vary a bit, but we'll go through the most familiar approach of altitude rather than orbital time and eccentricity. The big 3 are LEO, MEO, and GEO. Low Earth orbit is the bustling port where cargo arrives from Earth and is basically from the edge of space up to 1,200 miles or 2,000 kilometers. Medium Earth orbit, MEO, which currently is mostly host to navigation constellations, picks up from that altitude and rises all the way to geostationary, with the particular point of interest being the altitude at which things orbit Earth twice a day, called semi-synchronous, about 12,500 miles or 20,000 kilometers up, and this is where GPS satellites reside. Medium Earth orbit ends with an altitude and orbital period of each geosynchronous, about 22,000 miles or 36,000 kilometers in altitude, where orbits last the same as Earth's own rotation of 1 day. Inside the thin geosynchronous shell, the ring of geostationary orbit is the premium real estate, 24-hour views of the same patch of Earth. These are places we already want to service with tugs and depots. They're also where spent stages and dead sats become customers for remediation. They are the preferred location for power satellites as well, though for my own part I tend to feel having them in lower orbits makes it easier to create a worldwide grid, as you would need to auction power off, as opposed to parking over one hemisphere. Geostationary is also a limited commodity, a thin ring, not a wide volume like LEO and MEO, and power satellites can get big, though we have some tricks for extending geostationary, like lashing together satellites on either side of it by tether. Then there's polar orbits. Polar orbits are the workhorses of Earth observation. A spacecraft flying north-south passes over a new slice of the planet every lap as Earth spins beneath it, so in a few days it is seen nearly every latitude. Sun-synchronous orbits are a special, near-polar case tuned to keep the local solar time constant on each pass, high noon every pass or dawn every pass, so shadows and lighting don't change. That makes change detection easy and calibration sane for imaging, mapping, and intelligence operations. SSO uses Earth's slight equatorial bulge to process the orbit naturally, so it isn't fuel hungry in principle. The fuel burn comes from fighting atmospheric drag at low altitudes and keeping formation with other satellites. In other words, these orbits are premium customers for refueling, station keeping, and gentle orbit raising. A propellant seller in LEO with clean rendezvous profiles and standardized ports has buyers on day one, because every imaging fleet needs periodic boosts to stay on schedule. Around the moon the geography changes, but the logic is the same. Pick orbits that are easy to keep and useful to reach. Near rectilinear halo orbits, NRHO, is a lopsided loop that lives on the Earth-Moon three-body dance. It offers long dwell times over the lunar South Pole, continuous line of sight to Earth for communications, and modest station keeping needs compared to low lunar orbits. That makes it an ideal place to park depots, tugs, and small bus terminals for landers cycling to and from the surface. True lunar polar orbits do what their Earth cousins do: fly over every longitude as the moon turns, giving you repeated access to the polar regions where the valuable volatiles are trapped in shadow. The catch is that the moon's lumpy gravity, those buried mass concentrations or mass cons, can destabilize low orbits, so you either choose frozen altitudes and inclinations that behave nicely, or you budget a little extra propellant for maintenance. From an economic standpoint, the value is straightforward. NRHO is your staging ring with power, spares, and propellant, whereas polar orbits are your delivery routes into the mines. Tie those together with standard containers and predictable transfer windows, and suddenly, go get ice, make fuel, sell it uphill, stops being a slogan, and starts being a timetable. Lagrange points are the place where gravity and motion balance. In a three-body system, say Earth and the Moon or Earth and the Sun, there are 5 spots where a small object can orbit in step with the larger bodies, using very little propellant for station keeping. They are not magic parking lots so much as gently sloped bowls in the combined gravitational landscape. They are stable the way a ball at the top of a hill is stable, one nudge and it falls, whereas a ball in the bottom of a dip is much more stable. A nudge will return to the bottom and eventually stability again. We generally refer to the top of a hill type of stability as metastable. Around Earth and the Moon we call them EML1 through EML5. Around Earth and the Sun they are ESL1 through ESL5, and often for each case just L1, L2, L3, etc. The geometry is similar, but the scale and purpose differ. Earth-Sun L1 and L2 sit about 1.5 million kilometers sunward and anti-sunward of Earth. They are superb for solar observatories and deep space telescopes because they offer stable lighting and a clear, steady view away from Earth's glare. Earth-Moon L1 and L2, by contrast, only about 60,000 kilometers from the Moon, straddling the line between the near side and the far side. That proximity makes them practical interchanges for lunar traffic. From EML1 on the near side, it's easy to reach low Earth orbits and the lunar near side. From EML2 on the far side, you have clean lines to the far side surface and to polar regions. It is also a potentially decent launch point for interplanetary travel, especially with a tether involved, such as a lunar space elevator. Lunar L1 and L2 are also the natural waypoints for a lunar space elevator, which would be vastly easier to construct than the Earth-based one, and in my view, is more likely than not to be an early feature of lunar development. Normally, space elevators extend to geostationary orbit or an equivalent point around a planet. In either case, you have to build above the balance point, which again can be very useful as a kind of launch whip as we discussed in our space elevator episodes. Alternatively, you can place a large terminus station just beyond that point to act as a counterweight. Filling such a station with fuel, radiation shielding, and raw material hauled up from the moon makes for a practical and efficient way to anchor the system while also stockpiling vital resources. Those two cis-lunar points, EML-1 and EML-2, behave like highway junctions. Put a depot and a warehouse there and you can serve low Earth orbit, geostationary orbit, near rectilinear halo orbits, and the lunar surface with minimal reconfiguration of your vehicles. Tugs arrive, top up propellant, swap standardized cargo canisters, pick up spares, and head out again. Because traffic naturally leads through these nodes, they're also the right place to handle paperwork and software. Insurance, custom-style bonding, chain of custody records, and service-level credits can all clear at that depot while the hardware keeps moving, essentially a customs port. And thus also a good place for a hotel, restaurant, or bar to spend your time. We've explored before how Lagrange points, especially Earth-Moon L1 and L2, make natural hubs for space settlement. A cis-lunar economy doesn't just make them practical, it makes them inevitable. If your depots, tugs, and relays are already flowing through those balance points, then bolting on a habitation module, or a research park, or a construction yard is just the next logical step. What begins as a gas station and warehouse becomes a town on the crossroads, and towns have a habit of turning into cities. If you'd like a deeper dive into this, check out our episode on Lagrange point settlements, because the road to orbital civilization runs right through those gateways. You don't always have to travel in straight lines either. In fact, you almost never do in space. The gravitational landscape between Earth and the Moon has gentle ridges and valleys, so-called weak stability boundaries, that let you drift along low-energy routes. Ballistic capsule trajectories can deliver cargo with very little propellant if you're willing to pay with time. Priority freight takes the fast lane on chemical or nuclear tugs that burn more to arrive sooner and follow straighter paths. That difference becomes a business model. An operator can sell overnight, 2-day, and economy delivery the way trucking companies do on Earth, matching trajectory to value and price. But you need all three, as if nothing else, you need a way to rescue or resupply people in cis-lunar space in under a day. If you remember nothing else about the map, remember this. Depots are the interchanges that make everything else cheaper, and standards that the hose and hatch turn an orbital tangle into a supply chain. Put your warehouses where the lanes cross, keep your fittings boringly universal, and cis-lunar space starts behaving less like a frontier and more like a network. The stack. Infrastructure layers. Space may be infinite, but your docking schedule is not. While orbital space has many layers and regions, an economy has its own layers that feed each other. Transport, energy, comms, navigation, surface systems, and logistics. You do not need perfection in any one layer. You need a viable stack that keeps schedule. We will skim these for now, and our examples are just that, examples, not comprehensive coverage. Transport. In the near term, we have reusable chemical fuel tugs doing milk runs between low Earth orbits and other areas. They drink what we can buy now, Earth-launched propellant delivered to starter depots in LEO. In the midterm, we aim for high ISP vehicles, solar electric and later nuclear electric tugs for heavy cargo. They are slow but sip fuel efficiently, perfect for sending bulk materials from the moon to depots and for repositioning satellites or general station keeping. Add aerobrake shells for cargo coming home from LEO, so we trade heat for propellant. In the longer term, nuclear thermal for fast crude transfers and beamed power assist for cargoes, so tugs launch with dry tanks and top up en route. Possible tether trams and mass drivers in space also as we build up infrastructure, and of course in the really long term, any number of edge of science drives that could come into play. Energy. Power is the oxygen of industry. Sunlight is eternal in most of cis-lunar space. Only in lower orbits do satellites spend much time in shadow, and the duration is a lot less than 12 hours like on Earth. Generally an hour is about what batteries would need to run on, but on the moon the situation is actually worse than Earth. There's no unpredictable bad weather shading solar panels, but the sun sets for a couple weeks at a time there. On the surface, solar arrays and batteries get you started. At the poles you have near continuous light on ridgelines. In the shade of polar craters you test power beaming, microwave or laser, to deliver watts where the sun does not. For baseload and night, compact fission steps in. In orbit, big arrays on depots plus flywheel or cryogenic storage keeps pumps, chillers, and comms humming through eclipse. The key is oversizing early: radiators, cables, and grid tie-ins. Power shortfalls cascade. Power surpluses create markets. Sell kilowatt hours to visiting ships, rent rack space for hosted payloads, and run smelters after dark. And for that, you need a lot of energy storage. Comms and navigation. Cis-Lunar traffic will be noisy, slow, and full of dust. You can expect satellites, tugs, landers, and plume clouds sharing the same lanes. That means we need layered comms and nav stack. Lunar relay constellations keep near-side and far-side assets talking. Space-based PNT, positioning, navigation, timing, so tugs can thread depots and landers don't sandblast each other. And SSA tuned to the Cis-Lunar environment to track ships, tugs, and dust plumes from landings and mass drivers. And a boring but vital truth: good traffic data is itself a product. Sell it like weather, with subscriptions, forecast, and liability disclaimers. Surface systems on the Moon. Treat the Moon like a quarry with labs, not a heroic colony. What we take matters. Polar water and volatiles become LOX liquid hydrogen propellant, drinkable water, and life support feedstock. Regolith offers oxygen from ilmenite or molten regolith electrolysis, and bulk materials, metals, glass, and ceramics become structural parts, mirrors, and radiation shields. What we build first is pragmatic: pressurized work sheds for robots and short-stay crews, sintered landing pads and berms to tame dust, and meters of regolith over habitats to hit safe enough radiation levels, as well as micrometeor protection. Mobility will be functional: short hop hoppers, cable crawlers for ridge work, tethered descents into shadowed craters, and standardized cargo containers that snap into tugs and landers. No bespoke pallets. You may be 3D printing the stuff on the Moon, but standardization is still very handy. The Moon won't get colonized because it's romantic. It will get colonized because it's cheaper than shipping water uphill. Depots and logistics. Depots are simply warehouses and gas stations for space. The trick isn't one depot, it's making them standard and reliable. Cryogenic depots for things like liquid hydrogen and oxygen need active cooling and boil-off recovery and universal interfaces. Propellant grades, pressures, and quick disconnects must be boringly interoperable. A dumb machine or an astronaut in a very encumbered spacesuit must be able to work them. Lunar economics rule number 1: sell propellant first. Once fuel arbitrage works, everything else gets cheaper. A day in the life of a space tug pilot. Picture a tug pilot in the 2040s, working a milk run from Earth orbit to NRHO. Their job is not glamorous. They are not boldly going where no one has gone before. They are hauling propellant where they have gone many times before. Containers clip on, orders come through like digital bills of lading, and orbital depots slot them in for flow of traffic. From the cockpit, or more often the control chair back in a lunar side office, the pilot is thus Captain Kirk and more long-haul trucker. But this is the lifeblood of a space economy. Every lander fueled, every station resupplied, every satellite extended for another decade is made possible because someone made sure the right container was at the right interface at the right time. It is not glamorous, but it is civilization. As we start thinking seriously about building an economy between Earth and the Moon, it's clear the most valuable infrastructure is knowledge itself. Every great leap forward begins with someone learning something new, and that's what our friends at Imprint help people do every day. Imprint is a visual learning app designed around the science of learning. Each lesson takes just a few minutes, blending beautiful animations and interactive quizzes that help ideas truly stick. I've been exploring their Understand Finance and Investing and Make Smarter Decisions courses lately, both perfect for anyone interested in building new systems, on Earth or off. They are simple and get to the point, designed to let you absorb useful knowledge in quick digestible bits. Millions already use Imprint, which has earned over 30,000 5-star reviews and even Google's App of the Year. So if you'd like to build your own Cis-Lunar economy of knowledge, give it a try. Try Imprint free for 7 days and get 25% off an annual subscription at imprintapp.com/IsaacArthur. Putting it together. The self-priming path is simple in outline. Start with Earth-launched propellant at a LEO depot and a couple of reusable tugs on those milk run routes, LEO to GEO and LEO to NRHO. Use those customers to pre-position prospectors and pilot ISRU gear at the poles, electrolyzers, liquefaction skids, and cryo-loading racks. The day fuel and propellant starts trickling into NRHO, tugs stop hauling fuel uphill and start buying local. The fuel arbitrage is the flywheel. Cheaper propellant means more flights, which mean bigger depots, lower maintenance per mission, and even more missions. It's not a moon base so much as an industrial park whose warehouses sit in orbit. Policy and business rules are important here too, if maybe a bit more boring. 2 simple rules turn infrastructure into an economy. Standards from day one: docking rings, propellant fittings, data and power connectors, container dimensions, and service contracts, not one-off heroics. Commerce needs predictability. The frontier needs boring plumbing. The future of space won't just be decided by who builds the biggest rocket, but by who agrees which way the docking ring screws into it. What we sell, the first real markets. The first export is not exotic, it's propellant. Liquid oxygen, hydrogen produced on the moon flow uphill into depots in NRHO and GEO, feeding tugs and landers. With fuel in orbit, costs drop across the board. But fuel is only the beginning. Power and data follow. Kilowatt hours beamed to shadowed craters. Bandwidth sold from relay sats, and rack space leased on orbital platforms, possibly data centers as we looked at recently. Bulk materials like oxygen, aluminum, and glass flow next, feeding construction of trusses, mirrors, and radiation shields. Services round out the market. Delivery contracts, debris remediation, sample returns, tourism flybys, and even labs exploiting 1/6 gravity for research and manufacturing. Phase development, milestones, and pacing. The roadmap is straightforward. In the first 5 years, refuelable tugs, simple LEO depots, and early lunar comm payloads appear, backed by tech demos for ISRU and power beaming. Perhaps by year 10, prospecting is underway at the poles. Pilot ISRU plants trickle out their first propellant, and depots at NRHO and EML become operational. In the following decade, steady propellant sales finance small orbital industrial parks, tourism begins, and bulk lunar materials flow into orbit. This spurs investment because of the stability, and with that, as we move beyond to 20 years, true heavy industry kicks in, and we see the slow ease-in of habitation rings, solar trusses, radiators, and mirrors built directly into space, all while propellant exports continue to scale. A few quick notes on practical operations before we wrap up. Let's start with unit economics and finance. At a practical level, a cis-lunar economy will be measured in simple ratios. The K factor, the delivered cost to orbit divided by the launch cost from Earth, or how depot fuel prices compare to launch costs. If refueling in orbit saves more delta V than it costs, the model works. If not, because it turns out more costly or someone finds something better, like a space elevator, then it does not. We also need to consider standards, laws, and governance. Standards are the glue. Docking rings, prop grades, power connectors, data protocols. We set them early and enforce them. Dust management on the moon and safety zones matter too. Plume erosions can ruin your neighbor's lander just as bad as Kessler syndrome can ruin their satellites. Legal frameworks will adapt from Earth. Property rights tied to use, contamination rules, heritage protections for Apollo sites. And governance isn't just treaties, it's arbitration systems, insurance pools, and service-level enforcement that keep commerce running smoothly when missions fail or disputes arise. In many ways, creating a stable and confident business environment will do more for space development than a cool new spaceship engine would. From Cis-Lunar to solar civilization. In centuries to millennia, Cis-Lunar isn't the endgame but the workshop floor. Seed factories on the moon and at Lagrange points bootstrap their successors. Mass drivers hurl regoliths skywards for shields and mirrors, and a web of beam power-stitched depots and habitats together. Habitats bloom by the millions. Oneo towns in orbit, dark sky preserves on the moon, cultural hubs in NRHO. Heavy industry moves off Earth, leaving our planet greener and cleaner. Over millennia, Cis-Lunar becomes the launchpad for macro projects. Solar power rings, sunshades, Dyson swarms, and interstellar shipyards. Cis-Lunar space is not a destination, it's a workshop where we learn to build everything else. Once the moon pays the freight, propellant, parts, shielding, power, the solar system ceases to be out there and becomes our neighborhood. From that moment forward, the question isn't whether we can expand, but where and what we build next. So when we talk about a Cis-Lunar economy, we're not just talking about building warehouses in orbit or digging ice out of shadowed craters. We're talking about laying tracks to the first interplanetary railroad, the plumbing of a solar system-wide civilization. The moon becomes a quarry, yes, but also a launch pad. Depots become not just warehouses, but seeds of future spaceports. Tug pilots become the first longshoremen of an orbital ocean, and bit by bit, standard fittings and service contracts snowball into something far larger, a human presence in space that is permanent, scalable, and profitable. Not a moon base, but a moon economy. Not a flag and a footprint, but the first foundation stones of a civilization among the stars.